Zombies, witches, and even dragons. This one's got it all, and we're going to tell you all about it in Dead Kingdom Volume 2, Number 2 from Red 5 Comics. See you in 3. And welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is a review of Dead Kingdom Volume 2, Number 2 from Red 5 Comics. And in this issue, Kane and Alice are fighting against overwhelming zombie numbers when a surprising display of power unlocks secrets of the past. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know how we're doing. Your attention is greatly appreciated, and make sure to stay to the end for the final rating and the score. Before we get started into the meat of the issue, let's talk about the credits. So, Dead Kingdom Volume 2, Number 2 from Red 5 Comics is written by, I'm going to try this, don't hold me to it, I'm going to try, Etienne Derpentigny, who also did the art, the colors, and the cover. Letters are by Jerome Gagnon. I think I'm saying that right. This is French, which is not my forte, so stick with me, and a little grace and a little leeway is appreciated. Okay, so what happened in the last issue before we dig into this issue? In the last issue, Kane and Alice are now reunited. They are a loving couple once more. They decide, though, that they can't just stay there and do nothing in the fort. And with the zombie plague overtaking the land and some dark forces behind the plague, they decide to team up with Jeremiah and a few other folks to find out what is the source of the plague, where did it come from, who's driving it, and why, try to find a cure, and try to put a stop to it. As they go out and they meet their way down the road to the next town, they are suddenly surrounded by a zombie plague, and they have to fight their way out or die trying. That's what happened in the last issue. Now we pick up in this issue. So in this issue, Kane is hacking away with his axe and his sword. Jeremiah is swinging with his huge mace. They're fighting their way out, and they're trying to create an opening for the rest of the gang to escape, to get to a cart or get to a cave or get to some place where they can get away from the zombie horde, which just seems to be never ending. Suddenly, without any explanation, which will come later, Alice just can't believe that she's going to be separated from Kane again. She can't lose him again after they've been reunited. And so she all of a sudden goes into Super Saiyan mode, and her necklace that she wears on her around her neck opens up. A magical crystal comes out. She grabs the crystal, and lightning, thunder, all kinds of magical displays of power. She directs it at the zombies, and they disintegrate into dust, which of course leaves everybody stunned and dumbfounded. And there we go. That's the end of their conflict against the zombies. Later, around a campfire, Alice explains that she is what they call an ancestor, which is a descendant of a magical race of beings. They could be elves, could be some kind of special race in the time before time of where they are right now. And she begins to explain the story of where they came from in the land called Kataros, which is before the current era of humanity. Meanwhile, the magical display of power that obliterated all those zombies from Alice's necklace sets off a trigger in the Dark Lord that's responsible for creating the plague and setting it loose on the countryside. And he recognizes that the magical vibe or scent, if you will, and he knows that it's from some time in the past, which means that he probably has some kind of connection to Kataros. And now he's got the scent, and he's going to be going after Kane and Alice. And that pretty much wraps up the issue. It's not a very complicated issue, but you do see at the end, which is a kind of a cool splash page, as Alice is narrating the stories that have been handed down to her through generations about the land before their current era. You do see this sort of magical kind of elf-like knight person riding a flying dragon. So we know we're in for a big fantasy epic adventure that kind of sets the stage and the background for what's happening in the current day, or at least current day for them, and what are the forces that are at play that have unleashed this zombie plague across the countryside. So it's pretty short and sweet. The issue reads very fast. You don't get a lot of deep explanation about the background of what's going on with Alice, but you certainly get a lot more information, or kind of starts to fill in the blanks a lot more in this volume than you did in Volume 1. Volume 1 was just straight survival. This volume is a lot. There's a lot more meat to the background in the world building scenario, which plays into exactly what we liked about this issue. What did we like about Dead Kingdom Volume 2, Number 2 from Red 5. Big idea that raises the stakes considerably now that we know that Alice is very key to telling the story, and what's at stake, that there's some kind of big magical power behind everything that's going on. The background, that at least a brief little bit that Alice provides, exponentially expands the lore of the story. It's not just a witch or a warlock or a demon unleashing a plague. There's centuries and generations of background to what's going on here, and we're curious to see how that turns out. And this, now that the Dark Lord or whatever he is, has Alice is sent from the magic display of power, now that changes the direction of the story. Where most of Volume 1 was all about survival. We just have this zombie plague, it's overrunning the land, and Kane and his folks, they're just trying to survive. That's all it is. It's just survive and get back to your loved ones. It's very Walking Dead in tone and atmosphere. Now we're onto something different. Now the story starts to feel more like a fantasy epic in the same vein as Dungeons and Dragons, maybe. We'll find out. It depends on how the story plays out. But once you start introducing ancestors, which is a form of witch, and elves and dragons, okay, now we got a proper fantasy epic on our hands. So the world that has been built by Etienne is much bigger, much more grand in scale and scope. What do we like about Dead Kingdom of Volume 2, Number 2? The villain still is missing some kind of setup and motivation. It's just a dark figure that's in the background. He speaks briefly to one of his lieutenants, and we know that now that he's got Alice's scent of magic, if you will. I know that it sounds kind of weird, but that's just the way it comes across. He has purpose, but we don't know who he is, what he wants, why he unleashed a zombie plague, how he recognizes the vibration of Alice's magic, or any of that. We don't know anything about him. And we're, technically speaking, this is Volume 2, Number 2, so we're about 6 issues in to the series, and we know nothing about the villain. That's a stretch. So I appreciate that Etienne is doing a lot of slow, methodical world building, but it's, at some point you got to get back to the villain, because that's the source of everything that's going on, and maybe for some reason it's taking too long to get there. That's just being fair about it. So quick word about the art. Etienne also did the art, except for the lettering. It's dramatic, great use of shadows and dark, thick character outlines and setting outlines to give it sort of a antiquated wood cutting feel, which is super effective for what we're doing here, especially when when Etienne does glowing eyes and they stick out of the pitch blackness of the characters' lined and wrinkled zombie faces. It's really effective and really impactful. Plus the character acting between the humans, particularly between Kane and Alice, is really well done. So final thoughts. What did we think about Dead Kingdom Volume 2, Number 2 from Red 5? Delivers the goods for what we're looking for. We wanted to get more into the story rather than just be a straight survival zombie apocalypse type story set in the Middle Ages. We wanted to know more. We wanted to find the background about, how did the plague start? Who's behind it? Why? What are they trying to accomplish? And this takes a big step in that direction, especially with a surprising reveal of Alice's part in all of it. The stakes are higher, the world is bigger, and there's now a new dimension for where the story is going from a journey perspective, which is a good thing. Therefore, we're going to give Dead Kingdom Volume 2, Number 2 an 8.5 out of 10, and that's a good score they earned. So, speaking of motivations, especially for the villain, this week's op-ed on the future of the comics industry from the Comics Pro 2024 announcements could change a lot about what you know about how publishers do business. So I suggest you check that out as your next video. If not, stay tuned for the next review in our list, which is coming up right after this. Have a great day.